Huawei has just unveiled its latest lineup of smartphones. All the phones are powered by Kirin 9000 chipsets. But it might be the last time that the Chinese tech giant can use the processor because of US sanctions. For more, Olivia Seong joins us now from Beijing. Olivia, US trade restrictions are already affecting the supply of Kirin chipsets, and that's been since last month. Will the new phones be widely available?
Well, that really is the big question, but there's been no issue of the chipset supply issues during this launch of the Mate 40 series products, which is still going on as we speak. And there's also been no mention on how many chipsets Huawei has managed to stockpile before those US sanctions kicked in last month. Instead, this evening, we saw Richard Yu, who is the CEO of the Huawei Consumer Business Group, really focus on the product. They introduced the Kirin chipset that's being installed in this phone, and they've called it the most powerful chipset that it has in its most advanced smartphone that it's launching. The earlier reports did suggest, though, that the supply of these new smartphones would be limited after US sanctions kicked in last month. Under it, any semiconductor company that uses US technology in its operations would not be allowed to sell to Huawei. And so this has affected the supply of chips, which Huawei says it does not have the ability to make on its own. So Huawei has said its overall shipments, smartphone shipments, are expected to shrink this year compared to 2019, where it sold 240 million handsets. And this is even though it became the world's top-selling smartphone brand for a while earlier this year, thanks to strong sales here in China, as we had seen locals here moving to support a local brand in the face of US pressure. At the same time, it may be challenging for this new Mate 40 phone to be sold overseas, as due to US restrictions, there are no Google Play Store services on this phone as well. So we'll have to see what happens with this smartphone.
Yeah, Olivia, how's Huawei going to overcome the problem with the chipsets in the longer term?
Well, once again, there's been no mention of, what's Huawei's plans down the road and how it intends to address this chipset supply issue. The outlook, though, according to observers, does seem quite bleak. Huawei has previously also said that it's looking for ways to address this issue. And all eyes are also on the upcoming US presidential election that's due to take place in about 2 weeks now. And, Huawei has really been caught up in this China-US rivalry. The US has accused Huawei of being a national security threat and that its equipment can be used by the Chinese government for spying. And this is something that Huawei and China has denied repeatedly. And China does feel that the US is basically just trying to clamp down on the development of a Chinese company that is at the forefront of 5G development, which is a key technology. All eyes are on that US presidential election. We shall see if, under a Biden administration, there may be changes to the U.S. technology policy, and if, the Biden administration would want to come up with policies that benefit U.S. businesses by turning around some of these sanctions that have been placed on Huawei. Although other analysts I've spoken to say the outlook may not look so good, because both President Trump and former Vice President Biden have seemed to be competing on who can be tougher on China. So it's hard to say where the future lies for Huawei.
Okay, Maya, thanks for that. Olivia Seong speaking to us from Beijing.